Hey guys, this is Sean again.
And this is Nick.
And this is another edition of our company overview series. We're doing a Q&A on Nick's last video on NextEra Energy.
You definitely like it.
It's a utility, but it's not like other utilities. It's a lot more focused on renewable energy, and Nick's really excited about it. So Nick, why don't you just give us the 10,000 foot view of NextEra and what you like about it?
Definitely, Sean. So NextEra is, what I would call like an integrated utility company or an integrated renewable energy company. Mm-hmm. And what's really cool about it, I think that this company has been focused on renewables for the last decade or even 2 decades. It's one of the largest producers of renewable energy in the entire world. And, their structure is a little complicated. They have different subsidiaries, but really what you need to know, they have a few utilities in Florida. That's their main business. And then they have different kind of smaller groups of their company that focus on developments of this, new renewable projects, as well as a completely separate company that called NextEra Partners that we can talk more about. And they, kind of owning those assets and, monetizing it through different financial instruments. That's the 10,000 foot view.
All right. Well, good enough. So this is kind of a play on renewable energy and how things are shifting from, your traditional commodity-based energy company like Exxon, Shell, you name it, and going more towards renewable-focused energy. But with that shift comes a shift from pulling stuff out of the ground to a more utility-focused approach to energy, because you're just kind of plugging your electric car into the wall and just to the grid in general. So energy is now utilities. Why don't you talk about this shift from traditional energy of the past to this new renewable future that's centered more around utilities?
Definitely. And I think you're really kind of hitting it on, saying that what we think, or how we define energy, really going to change now. We used to think about energy as this integrated oil and gas companies. It's not oil and gas anymore. Like if you look at the future and how it, the market's going to evolve and what type of products people are going to use, from electric cars, as you said, it's all going to be electric. Well, most of it going to be electric. There's definitely going to be traditional, energy commodities, but most of it is going to be the renewables. And so now the way how we define energy should be more focused around electricity. And fortunately or not fortunately, whenever people think about electricity, it's a utility company, and utilities is a different sector in S&P. But energy is really shrinking S&P, so I think they should really kind of combine it for the future. And instead of defining NextEra as this energy company or as this utility company, it should be defined as an energy company. And I think going forward now, we as kind of investors need to be thinking about this utility as really that's what the energy companies of tomorrow are going to be. And that's how, BP and Shell and, I don't know about Exxon too much in exploration and production, but those companies, I think they really have to shift from this kind of oil and gas to renewables, and the way how they build the project is going to be very different. Another thing on this, just to mention, what's really cool about renewables is that they're very local. Traditional energy, they're exports, you have to, ship it around the world, and it's much easier to kind of take the barrel of oil and put it somewhere else.
Yeah, you can pull it from the middle of the ocean and take it home and put it in your car, but not so much when you gotta put a power line up. So.
Yeah, it's like with electricity, we don't have really good way to store it and ship it around. So as a result, it's really becoming much more localized energy, and I think that there is a lot of benefits to it, because now countries like United States, I guess it's a downturn. Oops. I'm going to mute my laptop now. But countries like United States now not going to be able to, I guess, export too much energy. They're going to be centralized on this new renewable energy, and now countries going to be much more independent of the traditional energy
everyone's going to
landscapes.
have to focus more on being self-sufficient than becoming like a net exporter.
Exactly.
So with that, there are still some commodity-based aspects that are going to continue into the future, in particular natural gas. So you mentioned in your last video how, along with renewable energy trending upward, almost more so trending upward is the use of natural gas. And with policies favoring renewable energy and things like this, how is this possible? And what's the reason that
natural gas is going up so much?
Yeah.
As a market capitalist, the main reason is it's cheap. So that's why it really, growing. Natural gas is just abundant in United States and, and Russia. So everyone trying to use those in the technology to produce power. Or what's also good about natural gas that, it has different use cases. With renewables, it really only goes to like power markets and stuff like this. But natural gas could be used in the production of different chemicals and lubricants and things like this. So the use of this is much bigger. Traditionally, when we're talking about renewables, we're talking about the power markets, and then renewables going to be like 30% of a power market. Natural gas is going to be like 60% of a total energy market in the future. So it's much larger pool. The main reason for it is there's just, it's cheap to extract and it's just cheap to produce. And as a result, there is a lot of, combined cycle gas plants that either producing energy or meaning producing power, or just, different use cases for natural gas going to be really grow in the future. And NextEra, I think, really capitalizing on that.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't you talk a little bit about how NextEra is playing the natural gas market and how they're positioning themselves in general?
Yeah, I think they're like one of the largest developers of natural gas power plants, meaning, producing electricity from natural gas. But what I also really like about them, and to be more specific, I think NextEra Energy Partners, which is, again, it's a separate company, but still I think it falls under that umbrella. They're into natural gas pipelines. And that's the business that I would like the most right now, because, being in midstream of this pipeline business means that you're going to win whenever natural gas volume going to increase. And I think if you look at any kind of forecast from EIA or anyone, you'll see that natural gas is going to grow in volume. And if you're in the midstream and you own pipelines and you charge everyone for transitioning like 1 barrel of there are no barrels in natural gas. Well, 1 unit of natural gas, but you're really going to win in the space in the future. And that's why I think they playing well this midstream game and keep building the pipelines, even though it's not really popular around, traditional people, meaning like from a retail investors, whenever we're talking about the pipelines, it's not, as favorable as talking about renewables, but it's a good business for the future for sure.
Yeah, so I don't know if you know the answer to this, but is NextEra's main goal when building this natural gas infrastructure, these pipelines, is it more for serving their own power plants, or is it just kind of to meet natural gas needs in general because there's so many use cases?
I think it's
a little both.
Both. Well, I honestly don't know the exact map of pipelines, which if you're gonna find, we're gonna put it out there for you guys. But I think that primarily it's not only the pipelines that gonna go exactly into the power plants. It's also gonna be the pipelines that can transport it to different entities, and meaning that they're not only gonna be decreasing their cost of raw products, they're also gonna make money on shipping it to other people.
Absolutely, because with pipelines, you're kind of held captive to the guy who owns it.
It's so difficult to build a pipeline, and from my own experience and trying to find the way how the pipelines are positioned and stuff like this, and how the process looks like to develop even a small portion of a pipeline is such a hassle. But it makes a lot of sense still, I think, for me.
We talked about natural gas a little bit, but I wouldn't say that's like the majority of the business, or maybe I'm wrong, but why don't you talk about some of the renewable projects they're doing, in particular NextEra Energy?
So they're pretty much in every single source of energy, if except of crude, I guess. They have wind projects, they have solar projects, they have energy storage projects that I'm really bullish on. But they have nuclear power, which is kind of, a mixture, because people who believe in renewable oftentimes they're very against
nuclear. I love nuclear power.
Well, you said it on camera, so I mean, drop in subscribers.
Okay, well, I haven't done all my homework, to be fair, but from what I understand, it's very efficient as long as you don't build it in a floodplain.
It's honestly like being in a space and listening to different experts. I think there is a break in beliefs about nuclear. Some people think it's terrible. People think it's efficient.
I just know that Bill Gates loves it, and I trust Bill Gates blindly on most subjects. So
That's true. Well, regardless, nuclear is one aspect, and then they kind of trade power markets, and basically they sell power to retail investors like us in Texas, and they also operate pipelines.
Can you speak on that a little bit? They I don't know if this is NextEra Energy or NextEra Energy Partners, but they make a lot of money through these PPAs. Power purchasing agreements.
Yep.
Can you just kind of give a 30-second overview on how those work and why they're so popular with pension funds and things like that?
Sure. So the general, I guess, way how PPAs work is someone develops a solar project. Let's just take solar as an easy example. So in this process, there is a developer who develops that actual project. Oftentimes, the developer can be the owner of the project as well. But most of the time, they actually, develop the project and then they're looking to sell the ownership of that, facility to someone else.
Real estate development,
Yeah. So then basically, whenever you're trying to sell something like this to other people, you're looking for someone who is interested in this power. It's very rarely that people are actually interested in the power. They're more interested in the cash flows. So then someone actually need to go, and it's a very difficult process to trade power, and there is so many regulations. So oftentimes, people like NextEra who have expertise in power space, it's very great to deal with them, because not only they can develop a project for you, they then also can sell the power to different markets, monetize it. And then if you do that, you basically going to, pay them a small commission or on this power trades, but you as a project owner can just monetize that power into the cash flows, and it's a very stable cash flow in most of the time, because everyone uses electricity, right? It's not something that you're going to cut down in a recession. So from the perspective of stability of this cash flow, it's pretty stable. The only thing that is kind of fluctuate is how much people pay for this kilowatts, but that's what's great with this PPA agreements, is that oftentimes when you develop this project, you basically selling the whole energy output for the 20 years to some project owner, and then
you can move on. Okay, so that's kind of exciting what you said. I don't know if everyone picked up on that, but it sounds like, so they're very good at developing these projects, and they have the connections to make these projects attractive to the investors, because they can connect them with the end user very easily with the investor doing very little work, and collect a commission for doing so. Now, instead of owning these projects themselves and having the capital tied up in there and being stuck with it for 20 years before they kind of pay off their initial expenses, they get that money up front, and they use that and they roll it over into more projects where they get more commissions for connecting the end users and things like this. And there's a lot of turnover doing what they're good at, which is building these renewable projects, which, as you discussed before, renewable energy works by having it everywhere, not by pulling it out of the Gulf of Mexico like oil and bringing it home. You have to have it everywhere, which means there's going to be countless renewable projects everywhere that are going to be needed if we're going to have a renewable grid.
It's also somewhat, depends on the area, right?
Yeah.
Where the most sun, it's going to be more renewables, but the point is solid. Yeah.
In general,
it can be widely spread.
Demand is very, I wouldn't say, stable. It's very...
well, everyone wants to be in renewable, right? A lot of companies like Microsoft and stuff like this, they want to use renewable power for everything, right? And it's
they don't make commitments to be carbon neutral or carbon negative.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, oftentimes they don't really buy that power. They only buy this energy certificates to verify that power was renewable, which is a whole different animal that we can talk about in the future. But it's just very hard to kind of export actual power from one location to another. Oftentimes it's easier to do through the certificates. But my point is that, you can sign this power purchasing agreement with certificates with Microsoft, and they're going to be locked in to use your power for 20 years with very small escalator on the price per kilowatt. And then it's a super stable cash flows, because you always know that in order for them to run their business, they need power. And so they're always going to pay you pretty much first. From a kind of yield perspective, I think this type of projects, owning this type of project, can yield you from 4 to like 10% probably, and comparing it to like treasury yields and stuff like this, I think
I was about to say, it sounds a lot safer than a treasury bond. If I'm a pensioner and endowment, I think I'd rather have one of these PPAs than a treasury bond.
Yeah,
but,
so that's why I think a lot of pension funds really like this type of financial instruments. And there is another aspect that I don't know if you want to go there, but there is like the tax equity investors who interested to just kind of monetize the tax benefits from building this project and lowering their financial obligations by doing it. So it's a very interesting instrument that people use in order to benefit financially.
Okay. So let's bring this back to a more broad perspective of NextEra Energy. I feel like we're getting in the weeds, which I like. So NextEra Partners. So what is their relationship like with NextEra Energy? Because from what I understand, they do a lot of developing the projects where they sell.
It's actually a little different. So NextEra Energy Resources, which is an entity that develops the projects.
And NextEra Energy, okay.
Yeah,
NEE.
in NEE. Yeah, they have to be more creative with their names. Just like NextEra in front of everything, and then there is it.
I think if you pull them up on Yahoo Finance or maybe it's Robinhood, they both say just NextEra Energy. Like it doesn't matter which ticker you're looking at.
An indication, right? But you asked about NextEra Energy Partners, and technically it's a completely different company. Which is the LLC, so limited liability partnership. It's LLP, not LLC.
Yeah.
But the point is, what they do is they own those assets that NextEra Energy develops. So if NextEra has a project that, long-term kind of 20-year of production of renewable power from solar, what NextEra Energy Partners does is they come in, they buy these assets, and then they have these cash flows that we discussed, PPAs and stuff like this, and they now can use, to bring, more stable revenue to their income statement, and they basically just owning those projects and monetizing the electricity from it.
Okay, so they kind of do what the pension funds and stuff do that buy from NextEra.
Yeah.
Okay, and is this because NextEra Energy, NEE, is a utility, so they traditionally can't hold things like this for a long period of time, or they just like to turn over their projects faster?
I think so, yeah. It's a lot of capital to tie in, and NextEra Energy Partners pay like a high yield, and it's a different structure with, I think, different ownership a little bit. And so there is no interest for NextEra to have so much capital on their balance sheet, and they need to unload it somehow. So that's what the NextEra Energy Partners are for. Plus, there's a bunch of financial and legal reasons why I think they're doing it.
Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense. NEP is the one that kind of pension funds and endowments want to buy because they get that high dividend yield.
Yep.
But so for NextEra Energy, so it is a utility, but like you said in your last video, they typically have a very much lower dividend yield than most utilities, but they have a higher growth of this dividend. And it seems to be coming from, they seem to be spending their cash on a lot of capital projects. So why don't you speak a little bit about how they're using their cash and how that kind of plays into their strategy? Yep.
I think majority they don't do any stock buybacks as far as I know, which I like whenever the company is not buying back their stock at this point. But they spend a lot of money on capital developments because they have so many projects right now. The pipeline, which if I'm going to tell you, it's not going to, make a lot of sense. But, it's more than, I think, 2,000 megawatts of projects in the pipeline, which is like a bunch of solar, a bunch of wind and things like this. And because they have such growth potential right now, they would rather prefer to spend it on actual projects, develop it, and kind of keep growing their competitive advantage in the renewable space instead of increasing their dividend to something that's comparable to the industry and just kind of be a high dividend yield stock. And that's what I think I like about them, because they basically invest in their cash into capex, meaning their growth in the future, and that's what really differentiates them. And I think you also kind of mentioned that NextEra Energy is a utility, which they probably 75% is the utility, but they also have this NextEra Energy Resources, which develops the project, which is the developer, so they have much more freedom in a way how they create their cash flows and getting paid based on the project completion.
Yeah, like exactly. It's they own was it Florida Power and Light and Gulf
Power, which is another utility in
utilities
Florida.
in Florida.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So that's their kind of stable operations, and then they kind of capitalize on this trend towards renewables, which they've been doing for a very long time by using the other 25% of their business or 30% of their business as it stands right now to kind of expand those projects. So in particular with those projects, they're making a shift towards not making it a shift towards, but utilizing energy storage as a way to make their, operations more efficient. Can you kind of like give us like an overview of that and like how they're using it to make their operations a little more efficient?
Definitely. So we kind of talked a little bit about, electricity, how hard it is to store it, and we don't have really good way of right now moving the molecule of electricity from one point to another, and energy storage is what really...
you can't just put it on a tanker. So you have to either store it or use it immediately. So kind of how does that whole relationship play out?
Exactly. So whenever you produce power right now, you have to kind of push it straight to the grid. There's no way to for power to just being stored anywhere. And what it creates is some kind of congestion on a power grid where electricity prices drop very low, because there is a lot of renewable power produced in one specific point of time, and as a result, you don't get paid a lot for kilowatts. But when you have energy storage, then you can store that power that is produced at a specific point of time, and later
kind of hold back till there's higher demand.
And later on, whenever the power prices are increasing later in the day, you can dispose it and then create more buck for your kilowatts, and that's what's called energy arbitrage in power markets, and that's one way how energy storage really can help the projects to become more profitable. And at the same time, whenever you do that, you also can require lower kind of interconnection requirements and can put the projects on a grid in the areas where it's much more difficult to connect kind of big 10 megawatt project. You maybe only can put 5 megawatt project, and if you put enough storage there, that means that you kind of can basically put a larger project there, and a portion of it always going to be stored, and as a result, it creates some flexibility and again power arbitrage for the company. I know it's probably too geeky, but what you should understand about energy storage is it's super new, and it's in the infancy stage right now. It's expensive.
From what, that's what I was about to add. From what I understand, it's very expensive to store energy. So
it is. But right now there is a bunch of tax incentives that allows you to have like a pretty much 30% discount whenever you put an energy storage project in, if it's combined with solar, and that's what NextEra does right now. Is they combine in this project, and then portion of it is just to kind of experiment and see how energy storage benefits it, because to be honest with you, no one freaking knows. It's so new that people don't really understand how it all can work and benefit the grid and electricity markets in general. But at the same time, whenever they're doing it, at some points in the country, because of this energy arbitrage, they can monetize the power better. And as a result, the project is actually going to be more profitable whenever we put energy storage there. And that's, one of the reasons why they got into this industry and was being very kind of popular and good about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like any investment. If you're forced to sell at the worst time, you're not going to do as well as if you can hold out.
Yeah.
But okay, so back up. We're getting into the weeds again. But which I don't mind, but a lot of people just kind of want the main story.
I can talk about renewables and energy forever, so you have to keep us at a hungry view.
So what people that want to know when they're choosing renewable stocks to invest in are kind of how they're playing it. So I think we understand that for NextEra, but what do you know of any direct comparables or competitors to NextEra?
Honestly, their company is like NRG, I think.
NRG, like the Houston guys?
Yeah. That They also in renewables.
But aren't they an energy marketer? I mean, I don't know anything about
they
them.
own projects in renewables as well, but their market cap is like 10 billion or something, and like NextEra is like 140 billion. So based on the market cap, it's actually, I don't see anyone who's been comparable to them. Maybe, I was taking some notes before it. Southern Company, which is another utility in United States, is comparable to them.
Which company is this?
I think it's Southern Company.
Do you know their ticker?
No, it's.
Can we put it right here?
Here we go. Yeah,
if they're public, I don't know.
That's true. I think they're public. The point is, no one is as integrated as NextEra Energy is, and I think that's why they do have some competitors in the utility space, which are going to be very regional and stuff like this. But I don't think there's anyone of their scale right now who can compete in any point of the country and develop those projects.
So do most traditional utilities kind of develop their own projects in the way that NextEra does?
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to clarify, that utilities are a very regulated market, and you cannot just go and develop a project anywhere in the country. Like PG&E, for example, cannot go and develop something in Illinois because it's regulated by the government, where you can be producing power and stuff like this. And as a result, you have to create a separate entity, and there is a legal structure.
PG&E is in California, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Which is another one of my favorite companies. We can talk about wildfires later, but my point is, it's usually very kind of regulated, and utilities cannot just go and develop projects anywhere in the state. That's why I think the structure of NextEra is very interesting. The point that they created a separate entity that can develop those projects anywhere, pretty much.
So I've seen a map, and it seems like they have projects, like at least one in almost every state.
48 states, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess they're selling off these projects to other utilities and pension funds and things like that. So like these utility regulations just don't apply to them because they're immediately passing it off, or they're selling it to NEP.
Yeah. Let me, I guess, put a map on here, which is going to be a map of regulated and deregulated states, meaning there's going to be some areas.
Interesting.
Yeah, magic of video editing. But there are areas where, like in Texas, there is a deregulated power market, and anyone can produce power and, push it on the grid and stuff like this.
I feel like I'm getting ripped off on my electric bill, but that's another conversation.
Exactly. Well, I mean, Texas is a very efficient power market, in my view. But the point is, in areas like Texas, they can go and develop the project, own it themselves, and then sell power. But there's areas like New York, for example, where I think it's a regulated state, so they cannot just go and own this project in New York. It has to be one of the New York utilities who kind of buys the project from NextEra Energy, and they develop it for them. And then by doing this,
so they got to buy it or develop it.
Yeah,
these regulated utilities.
And that's what I'm saying. In the regulated states, it's going to be a utility who needs a solar project, and NextEra can go and having the expertise develop it for cheaper price than.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of utilities, especially in these regulated ones where they kind of have, I wouldn't say monopoly, but they're kind of...
It is a monopoly, and it's controlled by government monopoly, so...
Yeah, so like, they get a little comfy. They don't exactly innovate, and they don't know how to do these renewable projects. NextEra can come in, develop them for them, just sell it to them, just get their money up front. Yeah,
and it's actually pretty hard to develop projects. It takes years for a big utility scale project, because there's a lot of, rather than engineering perspective, there is a lot of government bureaucracy involved, and whenever you connect it to a lot of utilities and a lot of government regulators and know this area very well, it's much faster for you to develop projects. And that's why I think some utilities don't want to deal with it. They just want to have someone who comes in, develops it, and then they just own power and sell it to people and keep using their monopoly pretty much.
Okay. Well, I mean, are there any other things like government regulations you'd like to touch on with NextEra, and kind of like tax benefits, things like that?
I think it's just kind of getting in too much of the weeds about the regulation market. I think, one stuff that I'm going to point out is that the in a free market like United States, it's interesting that, government decided to allow specific companies to be monopolists in specific sectors of the market, and it kind of makes sense. You don't want Enron stories to happen again, and
kind of took those deregulated markets a little too far. Sorry, California.
Yeah, they kind of get screwed. But yeah, that's my point. That actually, I think I'm kind of, even though I'm for the free market and stuff like this with electricity and power market, it makes sense to me why it's regulated, which, maybe at one point healthcare are gonna do the same and provide cheap power for cheap healthcare to everyone. But yeah, I'm not gonna go that direction. Just want to say that
it sounds like NextEra is getting the best of both worlds, kind of playing the field the way it should.
Yep.
Okay, so let's just get to the stock. What everyone wants to know: buy or sell or hold.
Yeah, I would say probably depending on your investment horizon. If you want to make a quick profit, I would either short sell it, I guess, or not get into the stock at all. But if you have a very long investment perspective, I would buy it. If you want to time it a little better, you can. But I think over the next 10, 20 years, this company going to dominate the energy, and I'm going to highlight it's not only utilities, I think it's the energy sector, and you should just buy it whenever.
I think what he means to say it's a great company, so dollar cost average over a wider time frame.
Sure, you can put it like this.
Crap is expensive right now, and nobody that does legit valuations and with conservative assumptions is going to be happy with pretty much any company right now. So
Tesla in particular.
Oh gosh, we're not gonna get into that. We all know you YouTubers love Tesla.
I just wish someone could explain me how the company could be changed. Nothing fundamental, I think, changed about Tesla in the last year.
I think
price is
okay. Well, I think it's a combination of two things. Is everyone was high on electric cars and how Tesla was going to lead the way, and then people figured out they made money through all sorts of renewable energy plays, like the credits and everything. Mm-hmm. We can make another video about credits. It's actually very exciting. But people found out that makes them super profitable, and on top of that, there's been this retail craze.
Yep.
And
but unfortunately, I think it's a lot of people invest in Tesla because they like the brand. It's not because it's
they just trust Elon Musk to make the best decisions.
Which is great. I mean, it played out pretty well so far. He now worth $60 billion or something, right? My point is on Tesla that I would just be careful with anyone who decides to put unlimited amount of money into this company. Even though I'm as bullish on Tesla as anyone, I guess, I would just try to think about, is it sustainable to grow 10x in a year when fundamentally nothing really has changed about the company in the last year?
That's the question. Is it? I don't think it is, but I don't know. It seems like everyone that wants to go short or sell ends up looking stupid. So I don't know.
I'm just more excited for the time whenever he's gonna, make SpaceX public. I feel like that would be an incredible company.
Well, that's funny you should ask. There's their last round of valuation they did in the private market. It was valued at $46 billion. So I instantly went and I looked at Virgin Galactic, which is completely different because they don't rocket all the way up into space. It's kind of like super high atmosphere, fast travel.
Space tourism company.
Yeah, they basically go into orbit to save you some time on international flights or to kind of show you space on a touristy kind of way.
I don't think they launched anything yet, right?
I think they did one test flight, but I don't really know. I don't want to invest or anything. I mean, it's kind of like investing in a really fancy, overvalued airline to me. But anyway, that's another conversation. But but I looked at their valuation. There was $3 or $4 billion. Virgin Galactic. So just to see that SpaceX is $46 billion. And they actually undercut NASA and a bunch of other I mean, there's not a bunch of other, but like, what's Jeff Bezos' thing? Blue Origin.
Blue Origin, yeah.
Blue Origin, yeah. So I mean, they have like they're really cheap, like for launching satellites and everything, which is forever in demand.
Yeah.
Because they can bring the rockets back and reuse them. So I don't know. They got the autonomous thing going for them to where they don't have to put any humans in danger, so they can kind of ramp up really fast. But that can be a separate thing. But we're way off topic. But
yeah, sorry guys.
Anyway.
Still on NextEra. Anything you want to wrap up with?
So NextEra sounds like you're a hold at best, dollar cost average if you want some exposure to this. They're a part of my portfolio, both NEE and NEP, and I believe they're a part of yours. I like them. I will be holding them. They're what I consider forever stocks. And
buy it for long term for sure. And if you're interested in high yield, buy NextEra Energy Partners.
And dollar cost average. Nobody's perfect on timing.
Okay, define it, because I think you mentioned it quite a few times.
Buy some now, buy some later, buy some after that. Just buy your position in pieces. And once you're satisfied with your position and you've bought at a few different entry points, just sit on it and look to your next position.
Here we go. Here's the definition.
Rebalance when you need to. Other than that, I think this conversation got me really excited about solar panel companies.
It's actually, let us know, guys, if you want to, what kind of companies you want us to overview next. As you can see, I'm really into this renewable topics, and I just love this industry so much. I think it's really going to change the next decade, or change the way how we think about energy in our generation. So I can talk forever about anything renewable, but if you want to, us to diversify to some other things, let us know what you really want to hear about.
I mean, if you want to diversify in renewable space, I mean, few just quick 30-second suggestions. I say solar panels, because who is NextEra Energy buying?
Yep.
Buying these solar projects from, they're buying solar panels.
Yep.
And renewable can't be moved except for with the grid, so it's going to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Demand is increasing, so there's that. And we could get into a whole conversation about hydrogen, but I think we've talked a little too long so far.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's good enough for now.
Anyway, let us know what you think. Put it in the comments. If you got more questions, we'll answer them. But stay tuned for our next company overview. We have some videos coming out that aren't company overviews, so make sure subscribe, follow us. We're going to try and post on a regular basis. Yeah, do it right now. I'm watching you.
Thank you so much, guys, for watching it. Hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, until next time. Thanks, guys.
Peace.